In the words of my mouth and the meditation of all our hearts, be now always acceptable in your sight, O Lord, our God and our Redeemer. Amen. Well, we know that story quite well, Lazarus and the rich man. In fact, the rich man's often called Dives. It's not a name in the Bible, but he's called Dives because in Latin that means rich. And there's obviously an enormous contrast between the lives of these two. The beggar, Lazarus, is at the rich man's gate. He's covered in sores, he eats only scraps, doesn't have a balanced diet at all, and all that's available to him, the occasional scrap he can get that's left over on the floor of the rich man's house, which probably also goes to dogs, and he might not get them as quickly as the dogs do. It's actually a story for today too, because in our cities around the world, we have poverty of this kind of nature. People living on rubbish tips, for example, isn't uncommon in a very poor world. And we can see people on our streets and towns in this country and back in the UK, people who are rough sleeping and who have health problems that are not being treated. For the rich man, Lazarus was just a very boring part of the furniture that he got used to. And he really wasn't interested in Lazarus's life at all. It had nothing to do with him, and he did nothing to make it any better, even though he had the power to, quite clearly. If Lazarus managed to get a scrap from the rich man's table, or managed to eat some of the dog's food, he didn't care. It didn't matter to him if Lazarus lived or died. And he wasn't going to lift a finger to do anything to improve Lazarus's life. He just couldn't care less. For him, Lazarus was a worthless human being to be ignored, and he was, in his view, a very valuable human being. He had wonderful meals with his friends, he had lots of money, therefore lots of influence, so he was really important. So when we see this story of Lazarus and Dives, as we'll call him, it's what Jesus is saying by telling that story is that there should be a bias towards those who are poor or lost. I was preaching about the lost parable a couple of weeks ago. He showed in his own life that he associated with the lost of society, the outcast. He dined with tax collectors. He spoke to women, which actually in those days was an extraordinary thing for a rabbi to do. He valued children. He didn't want them shooed away. He wanted to speak with them. But the parable about dangers of wealth. The rich man thinks he has it all, and he's a far superior human being to Lazarus as a result, because he's got it and Lazarus hasn't. But let's look again at the parable. It definitely doesn't go that way, or the way the rich man expected. When they both die, the rich man and Lazarus, it's Lazarus who is now living the heavenly life. He's been carried there by angels, and the rich man finds himself on the other side, where he found himself suffering very similar torments to those that Lazarus had endured in his own lifetime. What the parable is really telling us is that it's important how we live our lives on earth, and how we respect not just for those we love, who are near and dear to us, but how we help the outcast and the needy, and how we give support to those we might never have met before or are on the other side of the world. The challenge is to be faithful to God rather than to money. As soon as we think of money or land or other people as commodities we might own or exploit, we can begin to be personalised from the suffering and the deprivation that we see all around us. The story Jesus told of Dives and Lazarus was also clearly pointed in the direction of the Pharisees of his day, because they behaved like that towards the poor and the outcast of society. That was the way Dives was behaving towards Lazarus, similar to how the Pharisees of the day behaved. We know it's a privilege to be living in the rich Western world, in Western Europe today, for all of us. One of the richest places on earth there's ever been. But this parable also calls us to be responsible and generous in the use of our resources. especially for those in need. Just to make us think for a little more about this, we've got a short sketch that Mickey, Jane and Sue are going to perform to make us think on the subject.
She's really had my servant do this, but I've given her down. A rich man lived in a big house. A poor man wandered up and down outside his gates. But the rich man didn't notice him at all. He couldn't see him. He couldn't hear him. He couldn't even talk to him. He had plenty of food. And he had plenty of money as well. All this time, the poor man had nothing. He was hungry and cold and lonely. We can all be like the rich man and not notice when people need our help, whether it's our money, our time, or perhaps our friendship. Sometimes they live long, long way away in another country, but there might be someone nearby who needs your help in your office or living in your street.
I wanted to sing a song to you, which is about God's care, His overarching love and care for us. It was something that meant a great deal, lockdown in particular, to sing it. But obviously His care is overarching and conditional to us, but we similarly need to show that care in our times. I have heard so many songs, listened to 1,000 tongues, but there is one that sounds above them all. Father's song, the Father's love, who sang it over me and for eternity, it's written on my heart. Heaven's perfect melody, the Creator's symphony, you are singing over me, Father's song. Heaven's perfect mystery, the King of love has sent for me, and now you're singing over me, the Father's song. Father's song, the Father's love, who sang it over me and for eternity. It's written